Hello again, this is Hellcry, and this is the first in my series of Understanding Y2K. The story of Y2K is easily misunderstood, and my goal here is to make it a little easier for everyone to understand what's happening in the story. Today, we're going to look at Alex Yiik specifically, and dissect some of the aspects of the story where it seems as though there are inconsistencies. To really make my point, I'm just going to use things from the first chapter of the game. While this is something that happens throughout the game, I think focusing on the first chapter will help you understand better. Also, I'll be focusing on 1.0. The original release of the game. There are details added in later releases that make some things clearer, but I want to show that this has been the case since the release of the game.
On April 4th, 1999, I arrived home from school. I just graduated.
As we all know, the first chapter starts off with Alex arriving home. As he arrives home, he gets a letter from his mother to go to the grocery store.
Alex, dear son of mine.
And a weird phone call.
The needle of the record player has struck. The sound that the world now hears will change the nature of all realities, both yours and mine.
And then his trip to the grocery store is interrupted by a weird cat.
Of course, I didn't know this cat at all. We'd never met. He was a funny-looking cat, with a funny resting face and a Salvador Dali mustache.
Alex says a lot of things about the cat here, which kind of ends up being important later, so we'll hold on to these details. So as you can see, we're going to have a bunch of notes on screen to help contextualize the story a bit better. After following this cat to the local steel mill, you can run into this NPC that gives a little bit more information on not only the cat, but also the location itself.
You're not supposed to be back here, you know. What? You're looking for your cat? Oh, it's not your cat. Well, be careful around here. Make sure this cat is worth it, if it wandered into that abandoned building.
After entering, we have an infamous elevator ride.
I sighed as the elevator began to shake, vibrating with motion.
Which leads into us meeting Panda.
It's me, Panda!
The room that Panda is in sort of represents Alex's room, and this is the first hint at what's going on during this moment of the game. Leading into the next room, we meet the Proto-Woman. This strange woman that is on fire speaks in excerpts from After Dark, a novel by Haruki Murakami.
She narrows her eyes and looks at the young man standing there. He is so tall. She seems to be looking far overhead. Their eyes meet. The young man smiles. His smile is meant to show he means no harm. Through the eyes of a high-flying dawnbird, we take in the scene from midair. From above, we see that we are intertwining organisms. Through the eyes of a high-flying dawnbird, we observe the pyramid of dimensional shift. Through the eyes of a high-flying dawnbird, we pretend to not see the eye of providence. The eye of providence, or the all-seeing eye of God, is a symbol showing an eye often surrounded by rays of light, or a glory, and usually enclosed by a triangle.
The excerpt that's being referenced here is significant in how it applies to the story, and how Alex approaches certain things, which is something I will explain later. So after leaving this area, we have a few more NPCs that we can run into.
I saw someone in here. They're dangerous, that's for sure. Be on the lookout for a man with green eyes.
I've been wandering through these woods for days. I came in through the window over there to find my friend, but she's nowhere to be found.
It's so cold in here. Someone seems to have turned off the sun. The cold is bad. Bad things happen in the cold.
These all have their own importance, however it's not clear yet, so, again, these are notes for the future. But now, we've reached the crux of the video, the most important part. Here in this scene, we meet Semi Pak.
I'm Semi, but please call me Sammy.
There's a lot of interesting pieces of dialogue throughout this part, and it's going to get a little difficult to really keep track of everything, especially considering that we kind of need information we don't have yet to understand what's going on here. While this can be a criticism of the writing, this is actually a common aspect of postmodern works. The idea is to lead with something mysterious that doesn't make sense, that is packed densely with meaning and only makes sense towards the end. Everything here, and for the rest of this chapter, can be explained pretty easily, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to focus on a few of these lines of dialogue, which will make the core of the story make a lot more sense for you.
I waited for a moment as she processed what I said. She was a very difficult girl to read, especially without being able to see her face.
As we continue on, Sammy tells us a story about her roommate, Wilhelm, and explains more about Dolly. And now we've reached the climax of the factory hotel, where we see Sammy being taken away by 3 of these mysterious beings.
Let me be! You promised you wouldn't move me again!
Afterwards, which Alex walks home and mumbles to himself, up until the point he receives a message on his computer, which he checks out and finds this thread on this website called Onism. The images in the thread seemingly depict what we just witnessed happen, seeing an internet audience respond to it. However, if we look closely at the details on the website, we see that Alex is not in the security camera footage of the elevator, and we see one of those mysterious beings enter the elevator after Sammy is moved. An important thing to note here is that one user refers to this as possibly being footage from a movie. Then Alex proceeds to go to bed, and when he wakes up, we have what may be the most important piece of dialogue in the entire game.
I had a rough night. Can't get the video out of my head.
So, if it isn't clear now, I'll explain it one more time in a brief summary. What we're shown is that Alex came home from college, and for some reason or another, managed to go into this factory hotel. And while he was inside of the factory hotel, he met this woman who went missing, being taken by otherworldly creatures. And reasonably, Alex is a bit shaken up by this event. When he goes home to rest, he's confronted with the footage of what he just witnessed happen, and becomes enthralled with this conspiracy forum. But what Alex is saying in this moment, it is not the event we witnessed that traumatized him and kept him up, but the discovery of it on the internet. Weaker analysts and critics will just say that this is an amateurish writing mistake and dismiss it. However, this is actually constantly reinforced throughout the narrative. That what we're shown, the events we see take place, are not quite congruent with what actually happened. And to not get too far from chapter 1, I'll point out a couple instances of similar things. Shortly after this, we meet Michael, and Michael asks Alex,
"You saw her yesterday, right? So you saw her after she went missing? That's actually a good thing, Alex. This means she wasn't taken by some serial killer or a rapist."
But this is not quite what we've been shown, because we saw her as she went missing.
You see, she didn't exactly look like the girl in the video.
And getting out of chapter 1 into 2, when Vela tells Alex of the Korean girl who's gone missing.
Oh, and Alex, I thought you should know. The elevator girl has a name. Her name is Semi Pak. I was able to get some information on her. I'll share it with you in person.
Alex reacts as if this is the first time he's heard the name Semi.
Semi Pak, huh?
And I want to highlight one more line of dialogue outside of chapter 1.
My Sammy and Sammy in the newspaper may have looked the same, but there was a difference there. I could feel it.
So, what's my point? By using these context clues we're given throughout the story at this point, and analyzing the story from these details, it becomes a little clearer that it's not poor writing. However, there's a point to the writing here. And that from this information, Alex didn't meet Semi Pak. That Alex, as the narrator, is embellishing the story a little bit, and that we need to view the story with a little bit of this perspective in order to understand it. We're given several lines of dialogue that support this, such as these with Dolly that almost outright state it.
Of course I didn't know this cat at all.
A few of these lines with Sammy.
I reflected on her words. Something about her compelled me. Pieces of her story started to fit together in my mind.
And then the aforementioned panda scene.
Can't get the video out of my head.
With this in mind, we've opened up a lot more questions about what we've seen so far. And it gets a little difficult to answer them all without concepts that are introduced later in the story. So I want you to keep this in mind for future videos. I will address it later. essentially, the reality of events that we see, with the support of the information we have, is that Alex came home, saw the video on Onizim, and went to bed and had some weird dream. And what Alex is sort of embellishing is this idea of meeting her and all of this. That makes the factory hotel and everything within it a part of Alex's mind dungeon, which is something I will explain entirely in another video. This is sort of the difficulty with explaining Y2K, is there's a lot of concepts that you have to juggle between metaphors and concepts introduced, such as soul survivors, parallel lives, etc., that when you go back over the narrative with these concepts, you can see a lot of really interesting details that at first don't seem important. So, the reason I had all of these notes throughout this video is for me to bring them up in the future when I talk about mind dungeons, parallel lives, soul survivors, and more in the future videos. I want to thank Luna Freya VA for providing her voice for the Proto Woman and the Blue Woman and one of the entities. And I want to thank Rayon Ghosts for performing for some of the entities. And I want to thank my good friend Ropesnek for providing character portraits that you've seen throughout this video. Please support all these people. If you want information on where to find them, they will be in the description. And I will see you next time.